In this video, we will describe the conflict between colonists and Indians in New England and the effect of King Philip's War, and also summarize early New England attempts at intercolonial unity and the consequences of England's glorious revolution in America. In 1620, the Wampanoag Indians suffered an epidemic of disease which left them unable to resist the Pilgrims as they established their settlement at Plymouth, a factor which influenced Samoset, Squanto, and other Wampanoags to try to befriend the Pilgrims rather than to resist them. In 1621, Wampanoag chieftain Massasoit signed a treaty with the Pilgrims and celebrated the first Thanksgiving that fall. By 1637, years of constant encroachment by settlers on Indian land exploded into what was called the Pequot War, a war in which English and their Narragansett Indian allies virtually annihilated the Pequot tribe. Over the next 40 years, Puritans tried to Christianize their surviving Indians through missionary efforts conducted in praying towns, which were villages that were set up to teach God's Word and to acquaint the Native Americans with English culture. Take a moment and preview the comic that you see here to see what the events of King Philip's War were. By 1675, Massasoit's son, Metacom, who was also called King Philip by the English, attempted to form a pan-Indian alliance designed to resist further English encroachment through creating tribes and unifying them. Chief Metacom's warriors, supported by Narragansett and Nipmuc Indians, began to attack white settlements throughout New England in a sequence of battles that became known as King Philip's War. King Philip is pictured here. King Philip's War finally ended after the militias in Massachusetts and other New England colonies attacked the Indians back, killing thousands of them. But Metacom's warriors attacked first, and they attacked 52 Puritan towns, totally destroying 12 of them and leaving approximately 1,000 colonists dead. Militiamen captured Metacom. He was beheaded, drawn and quartered, and his head was placed on a pike, which was then put on display for years in Plymouth, Massachusetts. King Philip's War left a lasting hatred of Native Americans among New Englanders and slowed westward expansion for years. Prior to the Revolutionary War, there were several attempts at intercolonial unity. Most notable among them was something called the New England Federation. In 1643, the Bay and Plymouth colonies joined with two Connecticut colonies, New Haven, and scattered around the Connecticut River Valley settlements, to form what they called the New England Confederation. This confederation was intended to provide defense against Indian attacks and other potential enemies, and to deal with problems within the colonies and between them, including runaway servants and aid in arresting criminals. The Confederation was important because it gave colonists experience in delegating authority to chosen representatives for the purpose of dealing with the interests of their colonies. The Confederation, formed during the period of England's Civil War in the 1640s, was considered necessary because the king was too preoccupied to deal with the problems within the colonies. This period of benign neglect, or even called salutary neglect, ended with the restoration of the monarchy under King Charles II in 1660. After 1660, Charles solidified royal authority over the colonial governments, starting with his granting of charters to Rhode Island and Connecticut, which were rivals of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. In 1676, a royal investigation into the causes of King Philip's War determined various problems in New England and smuggling to circumvent the Navigation Acts. In 1684, British authorities revoked the Massachusetts Bay Charter. It was incorporated into something called the Dominion of New England 2 years later. The Dominion of New England can be seen here in this map, in the shaded green area. The Dominion of New England came under tight control of the British Crown following the revoking of the Massachusetts Bay Charter. The Dominion of New England was created to strengthen colonial defense, provide for efficient administration of the navigation laws, which basically was a reflection of England's rivalries with other European powers, and England's desire to control the colonies more closely. Sir Edmund Andros was appointed the Dominion's military governor. He is pictured here. He banned town meetings except for one time a year. He disregarded Puritan traditions, including keeping the Sabbath, made land titles invalid, taxed people without their consent, and clamped down on smuggling. By the mid-1680s, British citizens, including colonists living in the Dominion, were suffering under the rule of King James II, who was a very unpopular king. He was a Catholic monarch who succeeded Charles II, who had died in 1685. In 1688 to 1689, citizens in England engineered something called the Glorious Revolution, or Bloodless Revolution, in which King James was overthrown and he was replaced with William and Mary of Orange. In America, news of the Glorious Revolution caused the Dominion of New England to quickly collapse, leaving Sir Edmund Andros without royal support or political support in England. Governor Andros attempted to escape Boston dressed as a woman, but he was caught and sent back to England. In 1691, King William, pictured here, and Queen Mary, pictured here, reestablished Massachusetts as a royal colony, striking a blow at Puritanism and the political monopoly that was held by the church members. Under its new charter, all qualified male property holders in the colony were able to vote. England's Glorious Revolution brought about challenges to royal authority from New England to the Chesapeake Bay, particularly from New York and Maryland, in the period 1689 to 1691. Once enthroned, William and Mary relaxed the tight enforcement of the Navigation Acts that were once supervised by Sir Edmund Andros, beginning a period of salutary neglect. The British Crown neglected to enforce the Navigation Acts and neglected to try to enforce the laws to prevent smuggling. Still, Americans continued to resent English officials who remained in America as judges, clerks, customs officials, and other administrators, viewing them as incompetent, corrupt, and unconcerned about American affairs. In this picture, you can see the effects of the Navigation Acts. You can see that there were other countries surrounding Great Britain and some enemies like Spain and France that wanted to buy products from the colonies. Most products, though, could only be sold to England, and England wanted complete control over